Welcome, and thank you all for taking a minute to join us this Friday afternoon and attend our government press conference. As you are aware, the inaugural session of the 31st Alberta Legislature will begin on October 30th, with a speech for the throne. And on Monday, I apologize. On May 29th, Albertans did make their voices very clear. They voted for a government that would continue making life more affordable, improving government services, and defending our province from federal interference. We're proud of our record over the past 4 years, and we welcome the opportunity to deliver on our 2023 platform commitments. Albertans expect their government to maintain our province's status as the economic engine and driver of Confederation. That's why they voted to keep us in, to keep taxes low, keep investment pouring in, and to keep Ottawa out. In the coming legislative session, Alberta's government will propose legislation protecting against future tax hikes and safeguarding pensions. This means extending the fuel tax pause to the end of the year and introducing amendments prohibiting the government of Alberta from increasing personal or corporate income tax rates without first consulting Albertans via referendum. This is a government that also believes in supporting all Albertans, including those suffering from the life-threatening disease of addiction. Opioid manufacturers and wholesalers misrepresented the harmful effects and addictive properties of the medication, causing significant costs to the government, healthcare systems, and significant loss of life. The coming session will include proposed legislation to defend vulnerable Albertans by strengthening our case against those who contributed to the creation of the opioid crisis. Other amendments will be introduced, including that to the Justice Statutes amendments, and will update several pieces of legislation. This will include working updates to improve clarity while ensuring legislation aligns with current practices and other legislation. While questions pertain to specific legislation or language within a legislation will be best directed to the respective minister, I'm happy to take questions now in my capacity as the government House Leader.
You mentioned the pension plan. What can the government do in that regard when it comes to the fall session? I know you can't give us any sort of legislation, but in a general sense, what are you going to be doing on that front?
We're making it very clear as a campaign promise that should Alberta proceed with an Alberta pension plan, it would only be with the approval of Albertans via referendum. So be given that mandate.
So will this be a piece of legislation that will be introduced to say that, or a motion? What will actually be done in a very concrete way towards an Alberta pension plan in the session?
So exactly what I just said. So any move towards an Alberta pension plan could not be done without the approval of Alberta citizens via referendum. So it's really enshrining in legislation our intent to put this question to Albertans.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions on the phones?
I have a question in the room.
Yeah, let's do the room first.
Okay, just making sure we get everyone. Anyone else from the room?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you confirm if your party's moving forward with the proposed Compassionate Intervention Act, and if not, why this fall?
So this fall, no. We are moving forward with the Opioid Cost Recovery Act because we do feel strongly that Albertans stuck in the cycle of addiction deserve support, and any compensation that would be going to supporting Albertans stuck in the cycle of addiction. But with regards to the compassionate intervention, there's no legislation this fall for that, but it's a very important piece of our government's, the Alberta model going forward.
Is it coming in forthcoming sessions? Are you still working on it? I guess what's the reason for the holdup this fall? And can you tell me a little bit more about the Opioid Cost Recovery Act and what that might look like?
Well, it's a very complex piece of legislation and a process, so it won't be coming forward this fall with regards to the cost recovery, or rather the compassionate intervention. But with regards to opioid cost recovery, this amendment will strengthen Alberta's case against the manufacturers and distributors and consultants who contributed to the ongoing opioid addiction crisis and helping us recover costs from them.
Does that mean legal action?
There is legal action, and it strengthens our case, yes.
Okay. On pensions again, the Premier said she wants a hard number before putting this to a referendum, even if that might mean a court battle. It could be a long way down the road. Why is it important to bring that legislation forward?
I think it's important to make it very clear to Albertans that should we move forward with a pension, it's going to be with their support via referendum. So putting legislation just strengthens our case that we do want to hear from Albertans, We are currently consulting Albertans on this and making sure they have all the relative information. It's their pension, and they're going to have a strong say in that, or they're going to have the say in that. But it's important to have all the information, so when they make a decision, it's fully informed.
There's 3 or 4 bills we've heard coming forward next week. Might this be one of them, the pension?
It is, yes.
Are we going to amend the Referendum Act or the Elections Act? How does it work for the Alberta pension?
So again, can't really get into specifics of the bill. You have to wait for it to be introduced, and finer details of that bill would be better directed to the minister. But at a high level, we are going to make clear to Albertans that if we proceed with an Alberta pension plan, it'll be with their permission, and that permission given through referendum.
Thanks.
And a different topic, though, the issue, the Premier's talked about this a year ago and mentioned it since then, an idea of getting political parties involved in local elections, municipal elections. And there was some talk about potentially bringing in some legislation this fall. Is that going to happen?
There's no legislation currently being considered with regards to that for the fall legislation, for the fall sitting.
Thank you very much. Can I take our first question from the phones?
Belle Bellefontaine, CBC. Oh, hi there, Minister. Thanks for taking my question. I have another question about the fact we're not going to see a Compassionate Intervention Act this fall. Is it also because that you're still waiting for recovery centers to get built? Because I did hear that was possibly a factor in the legislation's delay.
I couldn't speak to why the legislation or the pace of the legislation. That's definitely a question better directed to Minister Dan Williams, who is working very tirelessly on that. But I do know that we take opioid addiction very seriously in this province. It's one of the main reasons why we're moving ahead with the Opioid Cost Recovery Act, to make sure that we are holding those accountable who have contributed significantly to the proliferation of addiction in this province.
Michelle, do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, I do. Thank you. And Bill 1, that we're going to be seeing introduced on Monday, I missed what you said off the top, and I apologize for that. Is that the bill where any tax increase has to be subjected to a referendum? I remember the Premier talking about that. That's
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Operator, please put through the second caller on the line.
Lisa Johnson, Edmonton Journal. Hi, thanks for taking my question. Just to follow up on the Bill 1 stuff, I understand that focused mainly on ensuring or putting into law that you need a referendum to raise personal or business income tax or business taxes. But during the campaign, election campaign, the Premier did speak about tax cuts quite extensively and some of the plans for tax cuts. And I think in some situations she may have suggested that would be rolled all into one bill. Should we expect that to be rolled into Bill 1, or is that, if that comes, would that be in separate legislation?
This bill in particular, the Taxpayer Protection Amendment Act, deals specifically with referendums as it pertains to increasing corporate or personal income tax. So we made campaign commitments during the election that making life affordable for Albertans, making it predictable for them is very important for us. That's why we're also extending the fuel tax cut through legislation to the end of the year. But so far as this legislation is concerned, it's important for Albertans to know that if any government, be it ours or future governments, were to increase personal corporate income taxes, it would have to be done via referendum. We take these matters very seriously.
Lisa, do you have a follow-up question?
Great, yeah, thanks for that clarification. And when it comes to introducing legislation that will bolster Alberta's case against pharmaceutical companies in regards to the opioid crisis, I know that in 2019 the Alberta government joined the class action lawsuit that was led by BC, and it was included a bunch of provinces. And I think in 2022 there was a proposed settlement of $150 million. So I'm wondering, in my understanding of that is that it hasn't been settled completely in the courts. So without getting into the details of the upcoming legislation itself, I'm just wondering how Alberta's case is bolstered. Is there a separate lawsuit that you're looking at, or is this in terms of trying to get a particular share of a potential settlement in that case?
Well, you're definitely getting deep into the legal weeds on that, and that'd be a question best proposed to the respective ministers. But what I can say, particular in this legislation is that, we are committed to recovering as much cost as possible from those who have played a large part in creating this problem. And we want to make sure that we're reinvesting this money and all the damages back into supporting those who are suffering from the cycle of addiction. And so, again, taking the matter very seriously, understanding that families have been devastated by this addiction crisis. And, to quote one of the chiefs or the chief rather in Siksika from our recent press conference, these are brothers and sisters. These are family members. And it is incumbent upon us as a government and as citizens to look after them. And I'm very grateful that we're looking at this legislation and bringing it forward, because it shows that we care about Albertans. We care about their health, their well-being, and helping them get off the cycle of addiction and becoming strong members of society again, giving them back dignity.
Thank you very much. I'm being told we have no more callers on the line. We will conclude today's press conference. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, everyone.
See you Monday.
Yes.